Hello, I'm Kaiser and welcome to Moose Reads. Before I get started, I want to say that the opinions that I give here are my own opinions. They are extremely subjective. If I dislike a book, it is not a reflection on the author and it is not a reflection on people who do like it. Different people have different tastes, and that's okay. Today, I will be reviewing Persepolis Rising by James S.A. Corey. This is the 7th book in the Expanse. It is a sci-fi novel, the description says. An old enemy returns. In the thousand-sun network of humanity's expansion, new colony worlds are struggling to find their way. Every new planet lives on a knife edge between collapse and wonder, and the crew of the aging gunship Rocinante have their hands more than full keeping the fragile peace. In the vast space between Earth and Jupiter, the inner planets and belt have formed a tentative and uncertain alliance, still haunted by a history of wars and prejudices. On the lost colony world of Laconia, a hidden enemy has a new vision for all of humanity and the power to enforce it. New technologies clash with old as the history of human conflict returns to its ancient patterns of war and subjugation. But human nature is not the only enemy, and the forces being unleashed have their own price, a price that will change the shape of humanity, and of the Rocinante, unexpectedly and forever. 5 stars. This book was entirely in line with the series so far. The writing was good, the characters were believable and well placed, if not necessarily likable. Solid book. I still liked it less than the others. We start with a 30-year time skip, which was pretty jarring. The confusing start was only compounded by beginning on Laconia, which by now has mostly faded into the background of problems that will have to be dealt with, both for me as the reader and for the characters of the novel. Laconians are the worst humanity has to offer, concentrated into one place. Sadly, they don't stay there. After a brief detour to set up some stuff for later, we spend nearly the entire book dealing with the Laconian invasion. Again, it's a fine enough plot and well written, it just didn't land well with me, because I hate the Laconians so much, I never want them to win, and they win a fair number of times in this book. It also didn't help that it felt kind of like a bottle plot. For those that don't know, a bottle plot is a plot wherein the characters are confined to a very specific and generally narrow area with limited resources at their disposal. A pretty common example of this is the murder on a train or plane scenario in crime dramas. I'm not sure this plot actually counts, but it might. It certainly felt like one to me. There's nothing wrong with bottle plots per se. They're an interesting exercise at the very least. I'm just not crazy about them most of the time. Here especially, I think my mild dislike of bottle plots was compounded by the fact that it takes place in a series spanning the universe, so narrowing the scope down so much feels wasteful. Technically, Cibola Burn could also be described as a bottle plot, but I think it bothered me a lot less because we were on an alien planet, so it felt space enough to satisfy me. Here the bottle is on Medina Station, and while a space station in an alien weird space is fairly spacey, it doesn't feel much like it when we're hiding in maintenance tunnels. My mild dissatisfaction is generally a me thing at any rate. Even so, I don't think it impacted the story negatively enough for me to drop it down to 4 stars, which is not true for every book in this series. That's it for no spoilers. If you don't like spoilers, now is the time to pause or close the video. For everyone else, let's talk details. At the very beginning of this book, the character we're following, Singh, heads into a facility called the Pen. Entrance requires some serious biometric scanning, and he says something along the lines of he felt like it could see into him and measure his morality. I'm not sure morality was the word used, but that was the basic gist. Despite barely being introduced to the Laconians, my first thought was, I doubt it, or you wouldn't get in. A page or two later, having learned just what the Pen was, I was forced to reassess. Maybe it does measure your moral character. Must be this morally bankrupt to enter. Decent human beings not permitted. The Pen, incidentally, is where they cultivate samples of the protomolecule to work with in their experiments. How do they cultivate it? By infecting living human beings. Not too long after this, we find out that the pen is a form of corporal punishment for anyone found in dereliction of duty. Our man Singh is about to get promoted for reporting his boss as insubordinate for thinking agonizing death is a little harsh for falling asleep on the job. Guess what happened to that guy? So yeah, when I say Laconians are the worst, I mean it. They picked the Laconia Gate way back in the day because initial scans showed it contained a construction platform with a partially built something on it, and Duarte figured he could use that to build a better navy. Sadly, he was right. Blissfully ignorant of the evils of Laconia, when they get a message that the bastards are coming back, everyone thinks the colony is probably collapsing and they're ready to return to the fold. Instead, they witness the might of a new superweapon that can basically atomize its target. Being obscenely powerful, the Laconians immediately take Medina. Fortunately, Holden and the Rocinante just happen to be in the neighborhood, so they are now stuck on Medina attempting to fight the good fight against authoritarianism. They, along with some old school OPA people, form the underground resistance. This is where the bottle comes in. Holden and crew spend most of the time hiding in little pockets of the ship that aren't likely to be noticed or found. At the same time, Clarissa Mao is slowly dying from her leaking implants. Amos is upset about it because if she's going to die, he wants her to die on the Rocinante, which has become her home. Clarissa, honestly, is one of the points where I feel like Corey didn't do the work properly. Technically, we spent an entire book with her on the crew, but she was pushed to the background so much that I barely registered her presence. So we got one book where she was terrible, one book where I begrudgingly began to accept her presence, a book she's barely in, and this. Suddenly, I'm supposed to care that she's dying by inches. And yeah, that sucks, but I'm still not attached to this woman. The only reason I care a little is because Amos is upset. Near the end of this book, due to an idiot double-crossing the crew, Clarissa dies in a blaze of glory, and I still couldn't bring myself to give a shit. There just wasn't any impact. I don't know, maybe other people like her more. For me, at the very least, they tried to wring too much emotion out of her death without ever making me care about her as a person, and I think they should have done a better job. Also, there was no fallout from her death. I expected Amos to go on a murder spree or something, given how upset he was at the prospect of her dying anywhere but the Rocinante. But once she's done that, he just kind of shrugs and says it's how she'd have preferred to go. Not only do I not care that she's dead, neither does the person she was closest to. I realize Amos isn't the best yardstick for emotional attachment, but it still stole any punch that her death might have had. I actually felt more about Singh's ultimate demise. Not because of him, really. He was an asshole, so fuck him. But it was a level of injustice that pisses me off, and I feel bad for his kid, who never did anything wrong. Yet, anyway. She's Laconian, so I'm sure given enough time, she'll turn out terrible. The thing with Singh is that he did his job. Badly, but that's not really his fault. He was trying to bring Medina to heel while facing off against random OPA saboteurs and the underground, which is no easy feat. He ends up tightening his fist more and more until he's ready to basically kill everyone to protect Laconia and its order. Unfortunately, Duarte has more or less planned for this to happen and how to use it, making Singh the unreasonable bad guy who squashed Medina beneath his boot and then having him killed as a show of Duarte and Laconia's dedication to all of its people. Anyway, as I said before, I don't like it when the Laconians win. The problem is that they do. There are 2 victories that can be attributed to the good guys by the end of this book. The first victory is that Bobby captures one of their fancy new ships, which bolsters the morale of the Resistance for the future. The second is that Naomi gets the rest of the underground scattered throughout the gates without being tracked, so they live to fight another day. Otherwise, it all comes up Laconia. They take Medina, they conquer the gate colonies, they bring Sol System to heel. They win, they win, they win. And then they capture Holden. So, yeah, not my favorite book. On to the next. I mean, at this point, how much worse can things get? That's all I have to say about Persepolis Rising. If you like this video, I hope you'll watch more in the future. Thanks for watching this one. Bye!